Hey everyone, I'm Ryan. Welcome back to my channel. I want to talk briefly about Gordon White's Chaos Protocols book. So I picked this book up because I had heard Gordon on the Higher Side Chats. He's been on there many times. And I resonate a lot with what this guy says. And if anybody has watched my videos for any amount of time, they probably know I don't really read very much. I like to listen to a lot of audiobooks. But I actually bought the physical copy of this book, and I'm very glad that I did. And I would highly recommend it to most people. Because while it does have magical components to it, it largely is just Gordon dropping what should kind of be common knowledge these days about ways of not getting yourself in financial trouble, ways of kind of alleviating financial burdens on yourself, to allow yourself to live a better life, essentially, to live a much more stress-free life, I should say. There's always going to be stress. Always. We can't fully eliminate that unless you're some crazy Zen person who can. Then by all means, please let me know how to do that. I'd love it. For most of us, though, we're always going to have stress in our lives. And a lot of what Gordon says in that book, and I haven't read any of his other books. I'm going to get around to it someday. I procrastinate a lot, but I'm going to try. But a lot of the stuff that he drops, especially in Chaos Protocols, is about things that I've sort of always believed, that I myself have followed even before I got a hold of anybody's book or anything like that. I've always bought used vehicles with cash. I've never owned a new vehicle. I've always done all the maintenance on my vehicles myself, which I know everybody's not capable of that. But if you have that option, I'd recommend it, or at least have somebody maybe that you personally know do it. If you have that option, I've always taken my work vehicles into shops, and I just don't always like the way shops handle the stuff. But the point is that I pay cash for the vehicles, so I don't have a car payment hanging out over my head. It's usually an older used vehicle, which might make the insurance a little bit higher depending on where you live and your background. I never got myself in any major credit card debt. I have a credit card and I pay for a lot of things on it. Simply because it's quick and it's easy. Too easy almost. It's a good way to get yourself into credit card debt, is using your credit card too much. But I use the credit card because I get cash back on it and then I immediately pay it off. I have never had to make a payment that had any interest on it. I specifically have my credit card because the interest won't start until after so many days. And if you only make the minimum payments, I pay it all off, whether it's $50 or it's $500, I just go ahead and pay it. The only real big payments that I have in my life are the stuff that most people have. But, insurance, I have car insurance, I have health insurance, I have all those things, which we all have to live with. And the biggest thing I have in my life is I have a mortgage. Now, Gordon suggests not getting a mortgage. I've never been one to like renting. I don't enjoy renting because I feel like you're just giving your money to someone else. But he makes a good point that money is all interest-free. It's a flat payment. If something happens in the house or the apartment, it's not on you. It's on the owner. So those are good options for saving your money. Now, I also am of the opinion that what are you saving all your money for? What do you save all the money for then if you don't have things for it? But like Gordon says, it just gives you that opportunity to live your life then. You can take a vacation. You can if you see something you want, you can just buy it because you don't have that stress of saying, well, I got to make my car payment this month, and I got to make my house payment, and I got to pay off my credit card this month, and I got to do all these things, so I can't buy this thing that I want. I know this is not an option for everyone. Some people might be in too deep already. But I do feel like this type of stuff, especially for younger people, should be, or at least become, common knowledge. You don't always need the most expensive phone. You don't need to put yourself into debt because you bought a $1,200 phone on a credit card and you're not going to be able to make that payment. You don't need that. Or you think, oh, I put it on this credit card, therefore I only have to make the minimum payment. It's only like $40 a month, no problem. Well, I guarantee you your credit card is probably like 25-30% interest rate because credit cards have an insane interest rate. So every time you only make the minimum payment, they add money onto the end, and then they make you pay that. And if you only make the minimum payment, you'll never catch up to that. So now your $1,200 phone just turned into an amount of money you might never be able to pay off. That's how people get into crazy credit card debt. And I know I'm not saying something most people don't know. I'm just so disappointed at people who still choose to make those up. And it's probably because nobody's told them any better. Maybe their parents didn't tell them any better. Maybe their parents didn't know. Maybe their parents did the same thing. It's just unfortunate because all it adds up to, as Gordon kind of puts it, is that you go to work to make all this money, to pay for all these things that you'll probably never really fully pay off, and you have no extra money to enjoy anything. You can't go out to eat because you can't afford it. Or if you do go out to eat, it's stressful because guess what? You put it on that credit card, the same credit card that's already got $2,000 worth of debt on it. It just adds to the stress. So if there's one thing that I really resonate with, like what he says, is to try to keep all that stuff to a minimum. Obviously, you got to have somewhere to live. Of course you do. You probably need transportation. You probably do need a car. I'm here to tell you there are plenty of good used vehicles that people have taken good care of, that are in great condition, that you could probably buy for $2,000, $3,000 cash if you have it. And if you have that option, I would highly recommend it instead of using that $3,000 to put as a down payment on some $35,000 brand new vehicle that will depreciate by 25% as soon as you drive it off the lot. I don't see the reasoning in it. I know, especially young people, I watched a lot of people do this over the years. They get a job and they start making steady money. So then they think, I make steady money, now I can afford a steady payment on something. But my recommendation would be save up a couple months worth of your money and just buy a car outright. If you want a newer car, fine. Save up a little bit more money. Tell a dealership if they usually have a whole big backlot of used cars that are in very, very good condition because people trade in their cars like crazy these days. Save up a little bit more money. Maybe you can afford to pay $10,000 for a new car. And I guarantee if you tell a dealership you're going to pay cash, they'll give you a pretty good deal. Again, I know not everybody has these options like I do. Of course I understand that. But it's little things, little decisions you can make from very early on. Like I said, I'm more targeting these people who are just coming out of high school maybe, or maybe they're in high school. Don't assume a credit card is free money, because it's not. And don't assume that by making the minimum payment, you're doing something great. By all means, have a credit card. I'm not saying don't have a credit card, especially like they could be great for an emergency. If you have an emergency come up and you need that money right away and you don't have the cash, you might need that. But get it paid down as fast as you can. And if at all possible, avoid using another credit card to pay one down. I know I went through a course in the Coast Guard that showed us if you have maybe 5 credit cards with all have debt on them, one of the best things you can do, instead of just continuing to make the minimum payment on all of them, is pick the lowest one. I think it was the lowest one. Someone correct me if I'm telling this wrong. Pick the lowest amount one. Say you got one with $500 on it, you got one with $1,000, you got 2 more with $2,000, you got another one that's got like $2,200. Instead of continuing to make the minimum payments, make the minimum payments on all but that lowest one, maybe that $500 one. If you can do it, make double the payment, triple the payment. Get it paid off as soon as you can so the interest quits accruing on it, because then that will free up a lot more money to move on to the next one and the next one, and eventually, hopefully, you can get them all paid down. I don't want to see anybody crushed by credit card debt of all things. You know, I get things in the mail all the time because my credit is relatively good, so I get all these things like new offers for credit cards that might have an even better cashback policy than the card that I have now, or what have you. And I don't do it. I have a few credit cards that we use for certain things, and that's it. Again, I know not everybody has that option, but get Gordon White's book, read Gordon White's book, and don't take it from me. Take it from somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. And Gordon's not even making any financial advice. You know, he's not a financial advisor, and he's not trying to say that. But he's saying things that should make sense to most people. And I know I probably am too, and I know people who are already in those situations are going to tell me to go fuck myself because I don't know what it's like. And I probably don't. But I know that I feel like I made good decisions even early on to not put myself in that scenario. And at the very least, I would hope people who maybe are in those scenarios would tell their kids, don't put yourself in this scenario. Don't do what we did if you can at all help it. Of course, you're going to have emergencies. You're going to have shit that comes up in your life. Absolutely. But like Gordon says in his book, that a lot of people wouldn't even be able, even if they had an emergency, they wouldn't even be able to pay $400 out of their own pocket without going into debt. That's terrifying. That's absolutely, to me, that gives me freaking just shakes in my stomach because I can't imagine that. And I feel incredibly sorry for the people who are in that situation, that live paycheck to paycheck. Again, I'm not trying to look down on anyone. I just think that any little thing you can do to alleviate yourself of those things, which I'm sure you're doing your best. We all want to do our best. But again, I think if we can cut down on all those credit card debts, we can cut down on, that's another big one that Gordon says a lot of people do, student loans, like I talked about in my other video. You know, you get yourself in a huge amount of student loan debt. And these things might not be necessary. So just give that a thought. Let me know what you guys think. Because again, I'm not a financial expert. None of this is financial advice by any means. I just know I'm talking from experience on the things that I did and that worked very well for me. My situation is different than yours. Yours is different than the people beside you, of course. Again, I'm not trying to talk down to anyone. If I could offer any advice to anyone and they want anything that I could offer from my own personal experience, I'd be glad to give those, I'd be glad to give that advice because that's the only advice I could give. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. Hope to catch you in the next one.